Welcome to Under Pressure, the podcast about becoming better men when it counts. I'm Cody Laughlin.
And I'm Brian Alfaro. Each week, we have honest conversations about building businesses, leading families, carrying responsibility, and the pressure that comes with trying to do all of it well. If that sounds like your world, you're in the right place.
No hype, no pretending we've got it all figured out, just real stories, real struggles, and what we're learning along the way. Let's get into it.
Taylor, good morning.
Good morning, Brian.
Good morning. It's nice to see you. It's been a while. Riding solo today, so I want to apologize to our listeners. Cody's not here, but I have the Filipino version of him. Filipino version of Cody. We're here in beautiful Denver, Colorado.
Yeah, beautiful Denver. It's a very nice place, and it's great seeing you too. It's been so long and catching up, and I know that we've gone through a lot of different experiences from the last time we spoke.
Yeah.
Offline to now.
Right. I think the good news is we've stayed connected throughout the years. I think I met you in, I don't remember, I was on your podcast that you used to have. So kind of a different conversation for a different day, but you had a podcast. I think I was maybe one of your first, I don't know, 10 guests or whatever, something very short list. And you're just the same thing I always say, you just felt like you were good people. So it's been great to stay connected and see your journey in real estate and life. And as a young man, you're not that much younger than me, but you're
31.
31. Okay. That's a big difference. So I'm 37 now. And so 6 years tends to make a big difference when it comes to life. But thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, no, happy to be here. And honestly, I mean, seeing you and Cody getting back to it too, I mean, it's really cool. I really did think of it as Jordan and Pippen.
Oh man, you're putting the bar too high for us. That's way too high.
Well, because I remember just hearing your podcast prior and just seeing the chemistry that you would have and all the value that you would try and give. I mean, that last podcast was so focused for what it was, but then now just seeing this other side of this podcast where you're talking about things outside of that and it's more human and in sharing these experiences, I think a lot of people can relate to it. So it's just cool seeing you guys back, but also just from in a different light.
Yeah, no, we definitely appreciate you listening, appreciate your support. And excited to have you in the hot seat today because, we've talked to a few guests over the last few months that we've been recording, released a few episodes with some guests. But I don't think we've had somebody that's 31 years old, a young entrepreneur, a young person like yourself that's still figuring out life. So, I was kind of thinking about what we'd be talking about today when we knew we were going to sit down and record. And I think the thing that really hit me from a lot of our conversations that we've been having over the last few months and the last few years, and you're you've got a girlfriend, you're engaged, you're getting married soon, and we're always talking a lot about life. And the thing that I remember being that age, and I know a lot of young people, if we have some young listeners, they could probably relate, is the feeling and the expectations that you often get when you're going into your late 20s, when you're going into your early 30s, and the expectations and the to use our show title, the pressure that you sometimes feel.
Right.
You often feel that pressure that I should have it all figured out. I'm 31 years old, I'm 30, I'm 35, I'm 40, whatever your age is. We go through this journey in life as men where society or maybe your parents often, especially there's a lot of pressure from parents, expect you to have life figured out. And I think I've learned this and I'm still learning it today. And you're learning it as you get a little bit older and get a little bit more wiser and eventually get married. Congrats, by the way.
Thank you.
That's just not how life works.
Right. Yeah, I think what's interesting about this too is a lot of people my age and even younger, there is this pressure to have it all figured out. And I think there's just been a lot of pressure, especially financially too, where we see how expensive it is to have kids and get married. And in a way, we just don't want to be that person. I think that is could hold our partner back in a way. And so I remember because I've been with my girlfriend at the time. Now it's going to be 6 years in May.
It's amazing. Congrats.
Yeah, 6 years in May, which is going to be really cool. We're going to be getting married next year. And honestly, I think I could have proposed like a couple of years earlier.
If she's listening, she would probably agree. Yeah.
But it was I just felt like I didn't have like a career ready. Like I wasn't financially ready. And I feel like I was okay to just push it off until I was just in a little bit more of a stable place. But what did change was actually my grandfather passing in a way. Not saying that my grandfather passing was like, oh man, I have to propose to Nancy now. Like there wasn't a direct correlation, but the experience of my grandfather passing, of thinking that tomorrow isn't promised, and I would regret every single day if I didn't get to propose to my fiance. That really brought things into perspective just in a completely different light. And I mean, even just for young entrepreneurs, hustlers, or I mean, shoot, maybe even for people older than I am, I feel like there's such a focus on like a destination of saying, "Oh, I'm going to feel this way once I make it to this specific event." It, every time I did reach that specific event, I never really
Right.
fully grasped and appreciated what that was and how it felt. And then I was just now moving the goalpost,
Right.
moving the goal lines down the way.
Right. Well, I want to unpack that a little bit. You said a few really important things that unfortunately are a way of life. We often, not even as men, just as people, we often don't get the light bulb, or we don't have the wake up sign or whatever you want to call it until an unfortunate event in our life happens.
Right.
For you, it was your grandfather passing, and sorry for your loss, of course, but that you mentioned seemed to have kind of a moment in your life where you're like, okay, I need to focus a little bit more, get a little bit more serious, and make these things that I know I am capable of doing, whether it's being financially successful, starting a business, having a good career, proposing to my girlfriend. It was kind of it helps with a little bit of a kick in the butt. And again, it's unfortunate. I've been in that situation too, where for me, it was always, I remember thinking back when I was much younger, I used to be very, very heavy. I used to be like 200 plus pounds in high school.
Really?
Yeah. A lot of people don't know
Whoa,
that.
I didn't know
A
that.
lot of people
I
don't know
never
that.
would have
Yeah.
expected that.
It's crazy, So, I used to be that way. And around that time, 18 years old, I think it was, my grandmother had passed from a
Mm,
heart attack. And like a year later, give or take, my aunt passed in her like late 30s
mm,
from a heart attack.
mm.
Again, neither one of them were the epitome of good health. I wouldn't say they were like 400 pounds or anything, but they just weren't the epitome of good health. And I remember telling myself, and my mom started having some heart issues that she got detected when she was going for her checkup. So I told myself at 18 years old, if I don't take care of myself, because you only get one body, one heart, one set of eyes, one set of lungs, right?
Right,
Then I am intentionally shaving years off my life.
right.
And that was my kick in the butt, right? So for you, talking about your situation, sounds like your grandfather probably previously had a positive impact in your life, somebody you maybe looked up to, or you felt left a good impression on you. And when he was no longer there, you felt the need, or had like kind of the wake up moment to go out and make things happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And and one of the other moments of that too that I feel like I wasn't as present with is just being more connected to family and my loved
Mm,
ones. And so he wasn't like financially wealthy, but he was very rich in relationships.
right.
And when we went over to his funeral, just seeing how many people that were there and seeing the impact that he was able to have outside of all of the finances, I think was really eye opening for me that everything just wasn't about finances and making sure that, we could cover, let's say, I don't know, any sort of expenses. Because even when I was in high school, I was thinking about this where I was like, oh, I need to make sure that I save enough money so I could have money for my future kids' tuition. And I didn't even have a girlfriend at the time
Yeah, yeah.
or a wife at the
Right.
time. But I was like, it's always just been a fear of mine. And so it's like, yeah, uh, these eye-opening moments, I mean, sometimes it's unfortunate, but it really is and can make an impact.
Yeah.
For
The other thing you mentioned that I thought was really interesting was use the word hustle culture, and
Mm,
then also moving the goalposts.
ah,
I think that's really interesting because and I've seen this, I'm 37, so my generation's very unique. Like, we remember life without the internet, and then we remember the internet coming around and dial up and telling your mom, "Hey, get off the phone. I'm trying to get on the internet."
right,
And then we've seen the invention of the iPhone,
right.
then fiber internet. Now we're in the age of AI,
Mm,
but we've also seen all these platforms: MySpace, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter becoming X. We've seen all this social progression. And one of the things I've noticed, because I've always been somebody who lately, of course, becoming more appreciative of social media and the positive impact it can have,
mhm.
but there's also a lot of negative or questionable things that come out of social media. And one of the things I believe personally is that sort of hustle culture, and then the moving the goalposts, because you said something really interesting. You look at people on TikTok, on Instagram, and everything on there is very curated,
Yeah,
right? I'm not going to say that that's necessarily a bad thing, but it's designed very intentionally. It's like if you were watching a movie or listening to a song, everything's very intentional. It's very curated. It's the same on Instagram. You see somebody on there and you might assume they've got it all figured out. You might assume they're super successful. They might be telling you, I'm 25 and I'm a millionaire, right? You see all these things. And if you're 30, you're thinking, oh crap, I'm behind. That guy's 25 and he's a millionaire. I'm 30, I'm way behind. And then you feel this pressure to do something, to adapt, to play catch up. When in reality, one, if it's true, he's probably an anomaly. There's not a lot of 25-year-old millionaires. And then two, everyone has their own journey and their own path, and accepting that and sitting down with that and realizing that you'll get there too. And maybe it's 30, maybe it's 40, maybe it's 50. Who knows what age it is, but we're all on a different journey in life, and you can't move the goalpost just because you're consuming content and you came across a video while you were doom scrolling.
Right. Yeah. And oh man, there's so many things that I want to unpack, because I feel like, and this was actually recently that I've just been experiencing this difference of perspective with moving the goalpost. Is I realized that, and I got to give credit to Anthony Vicino, who's also here as well. He's taught me this idea of just value casting, where goals. I mean, I think they have great intentions where we're trying to strive for something, but it's always future tense. You're never fully present when you're trying to chase for goals. And so for me, I feel like I'm a huge people pleaser, and I'm never going to feel like I'm enough, even if I did hit the goals, because the goalposts are always going to be moving. And so something that Anthony actually told me was this idea of value casting. And so he says the exercise goes by, imagine you are at the end of your days and there is a tombstone, and you have these 3 different words that are written on your tombstone, and they represent your values. They aren't your roles. They aren't your responsibilities. They aren't your
job titles.
Not job titles. They are, what do you actually represent? And so the values that I came up with were authentic, guide, and loving. And so if I just revisit those values in the morning and then throughout the day, and then even in the evening, there's actions and anti-actions that support me either being authentic, guide, and loving. There's anti-actions that disagree and make me not be authentic, guide, and loving. And so that's been so much more of a impactful reframe to at least live in the present while still having goals. And I think even just like with social media and like this idea that we have these goals, whether like it is tangible in some way or another, and the acceleration of AI, we're always like trying to be this perfect product, this perfect person that unfortunately is never going to happen, because we're never going to be perfect.
Yep.
And it's scary.
are naturally flawed.
Yeah. Humans are naturally flawed.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've heard Anthony talk about it in some of his content. To any of our listeners, look Anthony Vicino up on. He's got a great YouTube channel, puts out a lot of great content. But that exercise of going through, thinking about what your tombstone is going to say, it's not going to say CEO, entrepreneur, hustler. It's like you want it to say things. If it's you only get 3 options, which is makes it even more challenging, because a lot of people use different words or different adjectives to sort of describe themselves. That exercise can be very powerful and help shift your paradigm, so that when you're living your life throughout your day, trying to live your life and make decisions that are in line with those 3 words that you choose that you want to be on your headstone, or what people are talking about on your, what's on your obituary, what people are saying, when people are standing up at your funeral, like, does anybody want to say a few words? Like, what are people saying about you? Yeah. I've often thought about that. I haven't done the tombstone exercise. I think that's phenomenal, but I often think about when I'm gone and I'm not here anymore, and my daughter stands up, or my wife stands up, or somebody in my circle stands up and says, does anyone want to say a few words about Brian? And they go up there and they say something. What are they saying? They're not going to be like, man, Brian, he bought 2,000 units, and like, they're not
$50 million.
Yeah, $50 million net worth. Like, nobody
uses his bank account and his savings and his check.
Nobody gives a crap about any of that stuff, right? They're going to talk about whether I was present or not. They're going to talk about whether I was giving or not.
Yeah.
They're going to talk about if I was a good husband. They're going to talk about if I was a good father. Those are the things that I think are more important than any of the chasing the goalposts, moving the goalposts, chasing, these dreams, so to speak. And we're not saying that you shouldn't have goals and you shouldn't have dreams, but I think having goals and dreams without setting your values first
Mm.
is where misalignment often tends to happen.
Absolutely. Okay, question. Have you seen The Manosphere on Netflix?
I have not.
Oh my
Never even heard of that. Yeah.
goodness. Okay, so The Manosphere is like this whole ecosystem of these it's a documentary.
Okay.
And this guy, oh man, I'm forgetting his name. I think it's like Louis something, but it was a documentary that goes deep into the ecosystem of the manosphere, which is created amongst these male influencers like Andrew Tate,
Okay.
Justin Waller, Cody or Sneeko, and they're like these alpha males that try and teach these young males how to be a man, and a
Okay.
lot of that is like, Myron Gaines is another person on there, and it's these controversial figures that talk about,
What it means to be a
like,
man.
yeah,
kinda,
what it means
from
to be a
their
man,
perspective.
from their
Yeah.
perspective. But a lot of it is like, oh, like my woman's always gonna be like clean. Like there's like gender stereotypes that
Got it.
come along with it, and they're like, oh, if you're not making money, like what the hell are you doing? And like I think like the intentions are good, but just how it's all framed and how they're treating their partner, like, oh, your partner doesn't want equality. They want somebody to really lead and take charge. And they like really lean into this whole idea that like in order to be a man, you need to have big muscles, a lot of money, and just a bunch of women everywhere. And it's actually kind of scary to see how many young people have been impacted
Right.
by just that, of what it means to be a man and what it means to be a partner in your relationship. Highly recommend if you should watch.
I need
It's
to
super
check it out.
interesting.
Yeah. I think always hearing the opposite side of the coin or the spectrum is somewhat interesting. And when I
Yeah.
see content like that, I often ask myself, is these bold statements, these bold paradigms, these controversial figures, are they just doing it for likes and clicks and subscriptions? And because the reality is they're gonna make a lot of people very upset with these comments, right? But we were joking about this yesterday. There's no such thing as bad publicity for these characters, right? They
Yeah.
actually feed on it. The more hate and comments and people they can rile up, they have 1,000 comments on their video.
100%.
Even though that 999 of them might be people hating on them, they still got 1,000 comments. So that means
Yeah.
they made money on YouTube from the comments and the watches and the subscriptions, right? So I think anybody that sees that, I'm not saying we're right, they're wrong, we're right, but you always have to kind of question what you're consuming. Back to moving the goalposts
Right.
on social media, whether you're looking at videos about real estate, entrepreneurship, how to be a dad, how to be a husband, content creation, hustle culture, or whatever it is that you're consuming, always question everything. Even this like this, right? It's like you have to make your own decisions, and you have to question the authenticity of it. What's the motivation behind it as well? Do you feel like the people are genuine? If he's up there on stage talking about, this is how you be a man. Oh, by the way, I have a $20,000 mastermind. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, there's some, I'm not saying that's bad necessarily, but there's a little bit of other motivation there. He's a sales figure. Again, not bad, but just something to be mindful of for all the young people.
Yeah, it's interesting where it's like people can like take advantage of the pain points that some people are going through,
Right.
They like in it. Let's taking a step back here, just in the general sense of like, let's say investing in yourself. I feel like that's one of those pain points that people want to feel like they're investing in themselves, and that's one of and when they're selling coaches or trying to go to the mastermind or some group, like that's something that they're going to feed into. It's like, oh, paying into this is investing in yourself, but that's just a financial investment. I feel like there's so many other investments out there past just the financial investment to be able to build off of that, where it's not just financial, right?
So let's talk a little bit, Taylor, about, you're 31 and we're talking about all these machism things, hustle culture, influencers on Instagram, your challenges in having to wake up moments and different things like that. What are some things that you have learned and done at 31 years old? 31 years old, you're still very young. We're both still very young. We have a long life to live. We're definitely not the wisest person in most room, and we shouldn't act like it.
Yep.
But you've definitely been through some things, and you've probably learned some things. So how do you, I don't want to use the word fight that, but how do you kind of live your life knowing that these things are all important and you have your own goals and now your own values that you're working on with some coaches? What are some things that you've learned to kind of keep yourself in line with those values? What are some things that you do?
I would say it's just sticking with my non-negotiables. So there's just a few different actions that I have that are non-negotiables throughout the day. And one of them is creating content, right? And I've been posting daily on Instagram for almost 40 days now, which is really nice and really fun. But I think the act of creating and the clarity that I have of writing it, creating it, and thinking about what I do want to talk about has given me just a lot of clarity of being authentic. And I think sharing
Mm.
that too, whether it's imperfect, is still reinforcing the authenticity side of it. And also that's also a guide as well with my second value. The other side of it is making sure that I'm physically fit as well. So I actually had I did a whole genome sequencing. So I had my whole DNA tested. And something that I often think about is with my dad, everybody on my dad's side, there's a significant amount of them that haven't made it past 64.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of that has to do with just heart disease and diabetes,
Okay.
and just the being Filipino
Yeah.
in this case. And so I often think about that and how I want to at least get to 65. I got to at least
Yeah. You got to beat the average.
I
Yeah.
gotta beat the average here. And then the last part that I'm always focused. So nutrition and fitness is one thing that I always want to focus on. And then the last part that I've been focusing on too is just trying to be as present as I can and having intentional moments with Nancy, with my fiance. Because yeah, like I said, I don't necessarily know where and when or if anything's going to happen. I hope nothing happens, but just tomorrow's never really promised. Oh, this is something else that I think I could also bring up too that could be impactful. Is I ruptured my patellar tendon.
Yep. I was about to bring it up. You
Yeah.
didn't. So go ahead.
I ruptured my patellar tendon back in October of 2024. And that was a huge reset for me because I loved playing basketball. I loved dancing. So I used to be a professional hip hop dancer, and having the ability to walk and dance and do the things that I love being taken away for so long has been such a humbling process to where I just really needed to trust the process and have a lot of faith in it. Because no matter how many different leg extensions that I did, how many different squats that I did, it wasn't going to make my tendon heal any faster. And so I was really forced to just be patient. And so that's like the last part I would say is what I've learned in this whole thing is being 31 is just being as patient as I can, because I can't control any of the outcomes or
Right.
any of the timelines.
Well, life tends to force you to be patient, whether you want to or
Want to or
not.
not.
And there's a lot of lessons learned in hurting your body and realizing that all the things that we have at a younger age, we take it for granted.
Mm.
We really do. Being able to move, being able to wake up and just kind of jump out of bed and live life freely, and do all the physical activities that you can kind of do. And then you get a little bit older, and sometimes you get hurt with doing something you love, like you said, and
Right.
you realize, like, man, I can't take walking for granted. You know,
Right.
I can't take waking up and just waking up for granted. Some people go to bed and don't wake up. And those little moments throughout life moves so fast. Our culture today is so fast moving. There's no way to slow it down,
Right.
especially in our society. But you can do your best to try to slow yourself down and just take a moment every day. You know, one thing for me is just taking a moment, even if it's 2 minutes in the car before I like go back in my house, and just saying, okay, what am I grateful for today? What do I appreciate today? It could be something as small as like, I'm just appreciative to wake up today. I'm appreciative to be in America breathing clean air, because some people don't have that. I'm appreciative that I can walk again. Like, I'm sure you had a period where you probably couldn't walk after your, assuming you had surgeries or have been, surgery, right? So like those things, you come out of I'm appreciative, and I value the fact that I woke up from surgery. You know, some people go into surgery and don't wake up.
Yeah. Okay. I have a question for you with appreciation and gratitude, because I feel like a lot of people talk about appreciation and gratitude and that we should be doing it. And so I remember when I was journaling in the morning, I would, one of the prompts is saying, what are you grateful for this morning?
Yeah.
It's going to really set the mood. And it came down to the point where I was just saying the same thing every day because I thought that was what I was supposed to be grateful for, instead of actually feeling what gratitude was, at least in that moment. Like, I would just say like, oh, family, Nancy, the internet. I wouldn't be able to do anything of what I had, but it just became a routine of just writing down what I thought was the right answer. And so I would love to hear your take on that and your experience in gratitude, especially now, because I mean, do you have a daughter now? And I'm sure like those moments, and since it's going by so fast, it like trying to soak that in and being with all these other things that are going on, it kind of taking a step back and trying to be present can be challenging.
It is. And I've had that same challenge over the years. I started going through, like I have these journals. There's some you can like buy that are kind of structured, that kind of walk you through mornings. I was consuming a lot of Hal Elrod's content. He talks about the miracle morning, which a lot of people are very familiar with that. Part of one of the steps in the miracle morning is journaling, writing down what you're grateful for. And I remember when I was doing that probably started in my mid-20s, I had the exact same thing where I felt like I was writing things down, but maybe didn't truly feel the gratitude that you're supposed to feel. And often found that question tying me up as well, where I would answer kind of all the other questions, what's your number one goal for today? And, just different things that are in the journal. And you'd get to the gratitude when you're like, yeah, you just kind of pause for a second.
Right.
And I'm still not perfect at this today. I think it's an ongoing thing that I'm constantly working on. But I will say one of the things that I've learned or that has helped me is that gratitude isn't necessarily always a feeling you feel first. Sometimes it's a feeling you feel after you do something. So for example, you could say, oh, I'm grateful for my wife. And you say that out loud or you write it on the journal and you don't feel anything. You just kind of wrote it down. Well, what happens if you decide instead of doing that to actually show gratitude? Make it an action versus a feeling.
Interesting.
So I'm going to show my wife that I'm appreciative of her by sometimes I'll do things like I'll leave a note on her keyboard. My wife works from home. So I'll leave a note on her keyboard that says, I love you. Hope you have a great day.
Oh,
something like that. Right.
Oh,
So
okay.
instead of expecting to feel grateful for my wife naturally, I'm going to show her my gratitude.
Yeah.
Right. And then I'll get a text or, a thank you when I walk back in or something like that. And then sometimes I don't get anything, and that's okay too. I know I still did it, and that makes it a little bit more real for me. Like I feel that gratitude more knowing that I took some sort of action towards that person to show them my gratitude versus just hoping that I feel that. And there's other examples of things you can do. If you are grateful that you have an amazing boss, sending your boss an email or a text, or when you walk into the office today, just knocking on the door and saying, hey, so-and-so, I just want to tell you, you're an awesome boss, and I am really learned a lot from you, and I appreciate the opportunity to work for you. You're showing gratitude, right? You're not just hoping you feel it one morning. I think shifting your paradigm a little bit and asking, and this won't work for everything. You can't show, like, if you're grateful that you're breathing clean air, you can't tell the air thank you. It's a little different, right?
Yeah.
But I found that exercise of trying to find ways to actually show people gratitude often has changed my paradigm, or the feeling of being able to actually feel that gratitude along the way.
Yeah, actually, that's such a fair point, because like feeling it is just all internal, and you can't just somehow magically recreate the feeling. It usually comes from some form of action that's going to spark the feeling.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, I would encourage you. So if you're, one day and you're like, man, I'm really grateful for my girlfriend, my fiance, don't just feel it, show it.
Yeah.
That I've read some things and kind of learned there's another sort of mindset that people have around. This is very similar to like love. I think people say that love is a feeling. Well, I personally think that love, it is a feeling, but I actually think it's the result of an action. You feel it after you take some sort of action.
Right.
So if you want to feel more love, give more love, show more love, right? So it's the same with gratitude. It's like, how are you supposed to feel grateful if you're never showing anyone any gratitude along the way? So I think if you want to feel more love, you want to feel more, gratitude in life, give more love, show more gratitude to people verbally. And it's uncomfortable.
Right.
It could totally be uncomfortable to call or text or email or tell somebody in person, like, hey, I appreciate you. It's like, whoa, that's kind of awkward, especially if it's another guy. It's like guys are kind of weird sometimes, right?
Right.
But it helps. That's my biggest answer there.
So, okay, another question then on like, if you want to feel love, show love. Have you ever been in a scenario where you feel like you're giving too much, and now you're in this moment where it's like you're trying to expect love, and you're like, oh man, like what about me?
I personally haven't, but I could see that being a challenge where some people might feel that they're the ones giving and they're never receiving. I always give without an expectation. And that's something that I've learned. It is very challenging. I have a sign on my wall in my office, and I went through this exercise. I want to say it was in a book that I don't remember if it was The One Thing, which is a Gary Keller book.
Right.
They have a podcast, Jay Papasan does, and Gary Keller is he's a Keller Williams guy, right? Big guy. I think one of the exercises in the book, and I can't remember if it was his book or another book, was to go to people that you really feel like you value in your life. Go to 3 people, 5 people, and ask them really uncomfortable questions that you probably never asked them before. So I went to some people. I think I went to 3 or 4 people in my life at the time, and I was in my mid-20s at the time. And I asked, mid-late 20s, and I asked them, "Hey, what do you think my purpose in life is?
Oh,
What do you,
oh,
from your perspective, what do you think my purpose in life is? What do you think my best skill set is?" And I'm not talking about like whether it's your job or something like that. And what I ended up getting a response that was similar to everyone that I asked was they felt that my best attribute was serving others.
Hmm.
And when I was like, okay, I just asked 3 or 4 people and they all kind of gave me, they didn't say it word for word, but when you summarize it, they were all kind of saying the same thing.
Yeah.
I realized that my purpose in life was to serve others. And if you're truly serving others, in my opinion, you serve without expectation.
Hmm.
It's not that I'm giving something and now I expect something. So if you're going through that, and you'll learn this in marriage, so I'll give you a piece of marriage advice.
Yeah, I'll take any marriage advice I can get.
Especially if you plan on having kids one day, it shouldn't ever be like a tit for tat kind of thing. If you're keeping score in your marriage or in any relationship, really a business partner or anything, you're gonna find yourself in probably not a very good. It won't last very long, is what I'll say, because you're gonna start keeping score and realizing that maybe the other person isn't keeping score or they're not living up to answer your questions. Like, hey, I did this thing for you. Why didn't you do it back? Or why didn't you do it back? Or I've been doing this thing for years and you never did it back for me. What's the deal here? Again, whether it's a marriage or a business partnership. So I think if I had to share a lesson there, for you to learn is, again, don't keep score. It's never tit for tat. And then if you're truly serving others, and that's one of your foundational pieces, is that you want to serve others in life and be there for them, you can't keep score. It's just not how life works.
Now, is part of that also centered around your faith too? Did we talk about faith?
We have not talked about
Oh,
faith. Yeah.
okay. All right. Because this is something that even Nancy and I were talking about, because I grew up Catholic.
Same.
And Nancy is not. But we've always, something that we've appreciated just within religion is just like how it brings families together.
Sure.
And why there's just this like sort of central purpose of, I guess, love and serving God. And I think, yeah. And so I would just love to get your take on that then, and how that has impacted your marriage, your relationship with your daughter, and then also just with everybody around you.
For sure. I think for me, I grew up similar to you, where my household was sort of labeled Catholic, but we weren't practicing very good. We were there's a saying for it, I can't remember the name. We were the Catholics that went to Easter, Christmas. Yeah. It's like, and maybe sprinkling a few masses here and there.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't, hate my parents or judge my parents for it at all. Unfortunately, like, I wasn't baptized actually in the church when I was born. It's just, for some reason, again, I've never really asked why, but I wasn't. So when my wife and I got married, my wife grew up Catholic, was baptized Catholic, went through all the, Life Teen and all the stuff that you go through as a youth, made lots of great relationships that she still has today. We had that conversation pretty early. And even though I wasn't like a devout Catholic quite yet, she had asked me, and it wasn't a pressure conversation. It was more about like, hey, I would really love it if the church was a part of our family, and it was basically like a member of our family, and our daughter and our kid to be able to enjoy that. Whenever we had one, is that something that you're aligned with? And I was like, absolutely, because I had seen, even not being involved, how powerful the church can be in a family as a foundational piece, in bringing everyone together, teaching them life lessons, of course, teaching them to be grateful and appreciative of things that are provided in life. So we had that conversation early, and I was always open and willing to officially becoming Catholic. So I actually did that I think I started around 2019, and then COVID hit. So I ended up doing a lot of it virtually, but I ended up getting baptized in the church, ended up, fully converting into Catholicism. And once that happened, my wife was very happy, of course. Her parents were very happy, who were very devout Catholics as well. And that is something that we always agreed upon. We had a conversation really early was we want the church to be involved in our daughter's life, not in a forced way, not that we were going to like shove it down her throat and she has to love going to church and all that. But I knew growing up that I didn't have that luxury and that option of really building a relationship with the church. I didn't want to remove that option from my daughter. I didn't want her to not have the option to build a strong relationship with the church, make friends at church, because there's so many relationships that get formed and as a youth and as a teen going through these things. Yeah, I think having the church as a foundation in your marriage, if you're somebody who of course you don't have to be Catholic, but if just having the church there really lays a strong foundation, and it helps you in times, because you're going to go through times in your marriage that are rough. You're going to go through times as a parent that are rough. And sometimes you go to church and you realize like, man, the reading today was meant for me. Like, it's like, I don't, it's being speaking directly to you. And now we have, a young daughter. It's hard to go to church every week. So we're definitely, it's definitely not something that we do weekly. Sometimes our daughter's like just not having it. We were not able to make it. But we found more times than not when we're going through some trials and tribulations in one way or another, could be in our career, could be in an entrepreneurial journey, could be with money, could be with our relationship. Maybe we're just having some stress and some struggles. You go to church and you walk out and you feel a little bit lighter. You feel a little bit of weight off your shoulders, whether it was the reading or, a conversation you had with another parishioner, or you went to confession, like something along the way ends up helping you. So we want to provide that option and for our daughter and our kids. And I think anyone who feels the same way, I think that they would agree that the church ends up providing a really strong foundation for your family. That's hard to measure.
That's interesting. Were you married in the church?
We were not married in the church, but we ended up getting married in the church.
I
Yeah.
was going to say.
Yeah. So we went through the whole thing of getting married again a few years later.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we went through the whole process. I like to joke Catholics have a lot of rules.
I mean, they do.
They do, right? So they have a lot of rules. So we were married, and then we got married in 2016, and then I ended up getting fully baptized and entering the church in 2021 because I started during COVID, and then we got married again in the church.
Gotcha.
With 10 people there or something. Wasn't anything crazy.
Wasn't virtual water being thrown?
No. It was right after COVID. So yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yep.
Wow. I appreciate you sharing that, because that's something that Nancy and I always think about because we've known and we've seen the impact that faith has had in other people's relationships too, and that have really kept people together for long periods of time. Where I think it was one of my Lolas that talked about this, like families that pray together stay together.
I've heard that before.
I
Yeah.
was like, wow, I could see that happening.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And I was encouraged. I know you said, your fiance wasn't raised Catholic or born Catholic, but it's one of those things that tends to happen over time.
Yeah.
It wasn't like one of those things where I'm like, hey, as soon as we get married, if you don't become Catholic, this isn't going to work.
Boom.
Yeah. You're going to have to, you're on the curb, right? It was and my wife was very graceful in the sense that she said, hey, look, this is something that's really important to me. And the way I operate is if it's important to her, it's important to me.
Yeah.
Right. So it was definitely not a forced thing. And I'd already had some foundation around the church or whatever. So, it just kind of happened over time. We got married in 2016. I didn't get into the church until started in 2020, 2021. And then we ended up getting remarried in 22 or something like that. Right. So 5-6 years later, but patience is important.
Patience.
Yep.
Overarching theme of the past 2 years is patience.
Yep. Yeah. A lot of stuff in life requires patience, man. But it's been awesome having you on the show. I think we've had a great conversation. It's always nice to talk to somebody that I've been connected with for a few years. Any final words? How can people get a hold of you? I know tell me a little bit about your business real quick and how people can follow you and what you're working on.
Yes. Oh man, this is a great question that I feel like I'm still trying to figure out how to answer this question, because I've gone through so many different things. But best way to just get in touch with me and sort of follow what I'm doing is my Instagram page, actually. That's probably going to be the most active that I'm in. It's Taylor_Koo. I do have a website too.
Awesome.
TheTaylorKoo.com. I know, very unique here. But that's where I write. Actually, I have a lot of my real estate articles I used to write as well, even though I'm kind of taking a step back from real estate. And that's a whole, I feel like that's a
different episode.
That's a completely different episode.
Yeah.
But honestly, one thing that I'm really trying to focus on is building a personal brand that's authentic to me. And that's just through content, and hopefully trying to inspire just younger people, or even maybe even older people that feel like they want to share part of their story.
Sure.
And this is, I think, the hardest part with building a personal brand as a people pleaser is it feels counterintuitive
Yeah.
as a people pleaser, because you're like, oh man, I want to share a lot of myself out to the world for this validation, but I also need to make sure I feel good about this too. And you're sort of going through these different emotions of building what you want to represent, and you're afraid that other people are going to judge some of those parts. And so that, I mean, yeah, it really is the main focus. Long-winded answer of saying focusing on building my personal brand.
Well, I love it. Well, anyone who's listening who follows you, I will say, there's a lot of coaches, and I know you're not coaching, but people that are building personal brands or coaching others on building personal brands. And it's hard to tell if they're genuine or authentic and unique and all that. But I will say, having known you, for the last 5+ years, if anyone is authentic and genuine and truly trying to add value to others, it's definitely you, man. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing it for the right reasons, and I think people will see that in the content you're creation. But appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on the show. Like, it is truly an honor, especially from the first time that I interviewed you and Cody on my podcast, and now just doing this. It's been amazing, and I can't wait to see what else you guys are able to do with this brand, this podcast. I think it's really helping out a lot of people.
Awesome, man. Well, appreciate
the vulnerability there. So
awesome. Appreciate you being on.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Appreciate you being here with us. Stay connected by joining our weekly newsletter called The Forge, delivered straight to your inbox with thoughts on business, work, family, and becoming a better man. Make sure to check out forgingbettermen.com to sign up. If this show hits home for you, then hit the follow button and leave us a review to help us reach more guys who would benefit from it. This is Under Pressure.